Very good. As you probably established through my introduction, I do not have a background in healthcare, but this is an anecdotal story that I'm going to tell now. Apparently, in the 60s, the United States, there were major changes in the laws regulating fisheries. And a professor at Harvard Law School asked students to write position papers, one based on the position of the fishing industry and the other ones based on the positions of the environmental agencies. And this one student, a rebel, said, you know, these are two interesting positions, but there is one position that is missing. If we're talking about fisheries, what about the position of the fish? And so I'm the fish, talking from the perspective of a victim of healthcare, or maybe a consumer of healthcare. Very good. And Confucianism and healthcare, what is the relationship, if there is any there? And of course I'm here because I think there is, right? Otherwise I wouldn't be here. But Confucius was pretty much obsessed with the question on how to fix a broken system. He had offered us a wisdom for a time of crisis. And we think that it's important to discuss Confucianism in this event because we are a Confucius Institute, so that's why we want to bring that knowledge to you. We can argue that we are going through crisis, or somewhat of a crisis in the healthcare system. Costs are soaring, as we saw, not only in the United States, in China as well. I have nosebleeds. In the past, my doctor would see me with a nasal forceps, open my nose, put a flashlight inside, see what was going on, apply some acid. Boom, 5 years later, I had to come back for a new procedure. Went to the Upper West Side last year, same thing, but the guy comes with a big endoscope, sticks a camera into my nose, look around, oh, no, you don't have anything, and I'm bleeding every day, no, you don't have anything. I get home, 3 weeks later, I open the bill, and I'm like, you know, it was $500 for a 30-second procedure. And that he did not solve the problem. I had to go back. The service is typically mediocre, and I have references here. We don't need references. We live that on a daily basis. My wife went to a new pediatrician, and she raved so much about this guy. That the guy was amazing, incredible. And actually, because we don't see those very often, right? Doctors who actually listen to us. Actually, research shows that after 15 seconds, a doctor will interrupt you. And I was worried for myself. You know, I'm like, successful guy, is a man, who listens to my wife for 1 hour about the problems that my kid is having. It's tough competition. Yeah, I actually worked early to see if she was still there. But anyhow, we have the humanization of the medical students, technicians versus care providers, and where Confucius comes in all this story. Confucius was born in the time of crisis. So basically when he was born 500 years before Christ, China was going through major changes, constant warfare, feudal lords fighting, and to that situation in China, there were two major responses to that particular situation: bloodshed, chaos, corruption, and disintegration of what once was a great society in terms of major advances in the arts, in the sciences, in written language. So we had the realists one side saying, hey, if you want to fix a social system, apply force. Just make everybody, apply force and you shall resolve it. Then we had Mohism, the followers of Mozi, who would say, let's apply universal love. Let's do a national group hug and things will be solved. And then you had Confucius as the third answer. And the third answer of Confucius was, you only fix humanity through humanity. That's the way we do it, and let's all calm down. We have the answer, and the answer is in the past. Remember, we used to be a great society. So let's look at the past. Let's look at the wisdom of the past, and there's where we're going to find the answer for it. And that's where we are going to go. And one of the things that he would say is that whenever the branches are in order or in disorder, you'll have to look at the roots. There is never a case when the branches are in order and the roots are in disorder. So for you to fix a system, healthcare is a system, any kind of human system, you have to fix humans first. And how we do that? First we focus on the individual by giving them moral values, and then those relationships is spread to the family and then nationwide. It's a two-dimensional system. You work on the individual, the vertical axis, and then you work around your relationships with others. So the principles that Confucius left us with, the first one was, I'm not going to try to pronounce this, but Ren or Jan, humanness. And the humanness in how we live it on a daily basis is the golden rule. Do not do unto others what you would not have others do unto you. as healthcare providers. Actually, one of the things that he says is in whatever you're doing in your life, think of a carpenter. When a carpenter is carving an axe handle, all he has to do is to grab that piece of wood with his own hands and use his own hands as a model for how the axe handle should be molded. In servicing others, in offering care for others, all we need to do is to look at how we would like to be served and apply the same rule, do the same. Customer service, treat others like you would like to be treated. Also the concept of empathy. The concept of empathy meaning compassionate love for others and meeting people where they are and realizing that we are all in different levels of development and in life, and as a person who embraces Ren, we meet them where they are in their lives and we appreciate them and we listen to their stories and we are part of their stories. And as healthcare providers, this comes from how doctors think. Once you remove yourself from the patient's story, once you don't have empathy for the patient's story any longer, you will no longer are truly a doctor. The second moral value that Confucius teaches us is the concept of Chun-zi, which I'm not going to try to pronounce, which is that of the superior person. The superior person being the individual of high moral achievements, that person who is constantly trying to develop him or herself and attain different levels of perfection. One who is constantly pursuing knowledge, who is constantly pursuing self-development, and actually one, in his theory, one should only stop learning when the cover of his coffin is placed above his head. The superior person, I heard Lily saying it the right way, is the person that when he or she shoots an arrow and he misses the target, is that person that look inside him or her to see what the problem was, and does not engage in blaming or scapegoating or projection of their own failures, but is someone who, through self-reflection, look at him or herself and decides what went wrong and tries to correct it. It's an autonomous person. It's an autonomous person that engages in self-determined, who engages in self-reflection. And the interesting thing is that the concept of autonomy in the Eastern perspective, the Confucian perspective, is very different from our view of autonomy. Well, autonomy for me, I see Rambo. A helicopter drops in Vietnam, the helicopter gets the heck out of there, and he solves everything by himself, right? Him and himself alone, and a couple, bazookas and all that good stuff. But the autonomous person in Chinese perspective is a very different person, because you are autonomous in your self-development and everything else, but on the other hand, you're also a relational person. And in fact, the self only exists, the self only expresses itself when it is as it emerges from your social relationships. So the self does not exist in isolation. And you are a relational person, you have to be committed to others through morality and altruism. Then we have the concept of Yi, or righteousness and justice. Confucius was very big on what is right and what is just. And in response to the Mohists, remember Mohism is universal love. Whatever the situation is, just apply universal love. He said, if you respond to injustice with love, and remember, we were in times of war and chaos. If you respond to injustice with love, what will you respond to love with? Respond to love with benevolence and injustice with justice. So there is the very big focus on not only justice and bringing people to be accountable for what they do, but also the concept here is that for every different situation evokes different responses. I mean, we should, everything is contextual, and we should apply answers according to the context that we are living in. And I really like that. To know what to do and not to do, again, what is right and what is wrong, doing the right thing. To know what to do and not to do it, that is weakness. To know how to run, you all learned there in optometry school, how to run a proper eye exam, and not to do it, either because you don't appreciate the patient that is in front of you, that is weakness. To know what to do in the business world, knowing that you have to have tough conversations with certain employees who are not, behaving the way you would expect them, that is weakness. To know what to do and not to do it, that is weakness. It's doing what is right. Then we have the concept of li, or propriety, and that is actually one of my favorite ones. Confucius was very big on ritual. And ritual was music, ceremonies, sports. Handshake is a ritual. And he was a lover of rituals, and he believed that in everything that we do, we have to follow rituals, especially ancient rituals, to the T. Because the rituals is the only way that you can, that you have at your disposal to tame the human heart, or to keep the human heart right. Meaning that we all have passions, we all have desires, we all have the ways we would like to do things, and it's not about what we would like to do, it's what the situation requires, what the ritual requires. So, another thing, this for leaders. If leaders display propriety in their embodied language, in their actions, members will eventually embrace similar actions. And he has this concept that virtue of the ruler, the virtue of the ruler is like the wind, and the virtue of the people is like the grass. So the way the wind blows, the grass bends in that same direction. So, as a healthcare provider, when you blow trust and you listen to me and you spend more than 18 seconds listening to me, then what should I do? I will follow your treatment plan. I will trust you. I will bend in your direction. I will follow suit, okay? So we see that, I guess, on a daily basis, especially in care. I relate to this because I'm from Brazil and I see this happening all the time, the chaos we live in there. And when we look at our leaders, there's not much of a role model to follow. The golden mean. Aristotle is known to have established the golden mean in Western society, but golden mean in Eastern society comes from Confucius. It's finding the central harmony, the right amount of everything. And again, it goes back to the human passions. And the human passions, when they are awakened, we have to attain due measure and degree, and that is true harmony. And basically is taming our desires. Taming our desires in the interesting thing about how doctors think, this doctor talks about sometimes how we have that feeling of disgust depending on the kind of patient is in front of us. And again, if you're following the ritual, that feeling of disgust, it could be there, but you just ignore it because you're finding the right amount between your passions and your rational side, and you just follow the ritual. Passions have no place in that relationship. And this is absolutely beautiful, the richification of names, in that each person has a social name. And with that social name comes responsibilities and duties. And for us to achieve a harmonious society, you need each person to live those duties and responsibilities. So a question that I guess we should ask ourselves on a daily basis is, what does it mean to be a mother? What does it mean to be a father? What does it mean to be a healthcare provider? What does it mean to be a doctor? And live to that to the best of your ability. In fact, that is his whole definition of what it means to be human. To be human signifies fulfilling your social role. And very interesting as well is this fact that words must have respect to actions and actions to words. So you do what you say you're going to do, and you say what you do. And as healthcare providers, and other professions as well, but healthcare providers for sure, you all swear upon an oath. And in the Confucius minds, that oath is your life. You follow that to the T as much as you can. And finally here, rightfully fulfill your role and live up to your name, your social name. That's absolutely beautiful. If we all lived up to our names. You have the honor, you have the privilege of being called a doctor. What does it mean to live up to that particular name? Or a leader, for that matter, in any area of life. So here I have two videos of people who I believe embody some of the principles that Confucius taught. Two short videos. One is from Dr. V. Those who are in eye care know him very well. I've been following Dr. V for many years. I used to teach creative thinking back in Hawaii, and I use Dr. V as an example because of how he created this model of eye care based on lessons that he learned from McDonald's. But this has nothing to do with his model. It has to do with his heart and the values that he holds, which we'll see are some of the
வேலைக்கு போகிற பக்கமெல்லாம் வேணாம்ன்றாங்க. கண்ணு தெரியாதவளை கூட்டி வந்து என்ன செய்கிறது, ஊசி அந்த நம்ம சீலை வைக்கிற ஊசி ஓர்த்தம்ட்டா கண்ணு தெரியாது, தலையில் இருக்கிற பேன் தெரியாது, கீழே கஞ்சி கீழே ஒரு எறும்பு கிடந்தாலும் ஈ கிடந்தாலும் அது தெரியாது.
Cataract. The clouding of the eye's lens is the leading cause of blindness in the developing world.
Now, it's a very, very funny experiment. I used to sit with the ordinary village man because I am from a village. What you call a rustic, unsophisticated man. And then you seem to contact his inner being. You seem to be one with him. But here is a soul which has got all the simplicity of confidence. Doctor, whatever you say, I accept it. An implicit faith in you. And then you respond it. Here is an old lady who has got so much of faith in me. I must do my best for her. Now, how am I going to train myself to do perfection?
Aurobindo talked about the perfectibility of the human soul, and Dr. V embodies it. He embodies the perfectibility of humanity, both in his work on the perfection of himself and his work on ridding the world of one form of suffering.
So the perfectibility of the human soul, to the superior man. And not only that, what I really love about it is when you have a person in a position of power, and how when he sees a person who is a person from the very simple, very humble, from the rural areas, and this actually comes from the Analects, armed with a self-respect. This is beautiful, and this is hard to understand sometimes in our Western world. With a self-respect that generates respect for others, he approaches them wondering not what can I get from them, but what can I do to accommodate them? What can I do to offer this human being that is in front of me the best that I can? And when I heard him speak, I was like, all right, I have to get a video from you. And he was kind enough to record a video using his computer, and he sent it to me last Sunday. So I just wanted to also show some of the pieces of art.
I'm a medical doctor, and I bring medical care directly to the people sleeping under the bridges, along the riverbanks, in the abandoned buildings here in Pittsburgh. So in the beginning, I dressed as a homeless person so that I could plunge more deeply into that experience and began to make house calls to the homeless. What I saw really opened my eyes and my heart. Each one of them had their own story, their own unique experience. So I found a group of people who felt that they had been tossed away by the rest of society. They were alienated and felt that no one really wanted to know them or know their actual experience. I think my motivation for this work stemmed both from a desire to bring care to people within my community who were in need. I needed to find some way to also address and hold accountable the inequities in healthcare that were right here in my own community. And my friends on the street have, really provided an opportunity to stretch myself and actually rally ourselves as a community to care for each and every person as if they were us. The future will be dictated, I think, largely by not just the technical skills we can have and the expertise, the sacred knowledge that we actually have, but can we stretch ourselves to reach people where they are and bring that care to them in a relevant fashion, in a way that says, your reality is important, you're important, and we'll bring that to you. We'll never give up on you. You're a brother, you're a sister to us. Learn and be the best you can. Get your skills so that you can bring quality health care to the people that you serve. But when you see something wrong, you see some injustice, you see something that shouldn't be the way it is, don't just walk with a herd. Have the courage, the integrity to say why, and then, after due diligence, step outside of the boundaries. Go around the corner. See what's going on. Make partnerships with the people that are left out, and I think will then serve as an example to your peers about how medicine really should be practiced. That it's an ethical and a moral as well as a technical obligation and a privilege.
So this is a guy that I met February 1st, you know, and when we talk about some of these moral values that Confucius taught us, you know, I mean, is that really real? And I thought those two examples really show people who are living by those values. Humanist, trying to be the best you can, propriety, following the ritual, and righteousness and justice. And that's all I have. Thank you very much. Thank you.